I'm seeing a metric fuck ton of British pundits and content creators complaining about Americans calling the sport soccer, and I'm getting pretty tired of this. At this point, every British footballing commentator person should be well aware of the history of this British invented term. It's your word. You made it up. British schoolboys made it up. You either know this, at which point this is an intellectually disingenuous conversation, or you don't know this, at which point you've demonstrated your ignorance. The original games of football, historians usually call it folk football, were often massive village-wide games where hundreds or even 1,000 people would play at a time. And it was called football because you played it on your feet. You ran on your feet. It wasn't on horseback, on top of a horse's hooves. Why do you call it football if you don't even kick the ball? Study history. When British schoolboys started to try to formalize their rules, some schools preferred a kicking game and some schools preferred a handling game. For a game to become a sport, you have to go through a process that is often called sportivization. Sportivization involves formalizing rules, developing standards, and creating terms. The critical moment in this sport's history was the establishment of the Football Association in 1863, which provided a central source for rules and standards. So now schoolboys, specifically at Oxford, have to distinguish between the two games. Hey friends, what game are we going to play today? The one where we run with the ball in our hands, or the one where we kick the ball on the ground? I'm so tired of explaining this to people who know better. Kids and young adults tend to be language innovators, and this happens all the time throughout history across the world and across time. These young folk utilize a series of informalisms, slang terms, and shortcuts that eventually leads to the development of new shared understandings, that these particular new grunts mean this specific thing. Kids at schools do this all the time. They make up terms and create these slang meanings and as a means of differentiating themselves from past generations and other people. And they're also pretty efficient in the majority of cases. One consistently employed strategy across time and place is called hypochoristic suffixation, in which you shorten a word and add a playful little suffix to it. That's all that's happening when young kids today describe something like looks maxing. At Oxford, their preferred playful little suffix was er. So these young people at Oxford called breakfast brekker, they called champagne champers, and they called the Bodleian Library boaters. Rugby was named after the rugby school where they first wrote down the rules, and they called that one rugger. But our kicking game didn't have a school-based origins. Well, it did, but it was a bunch of different schools. An association wrote down the rules. They're the ones who wrote down the rules, and they did so at a random pub. So these schoolboys got to name it after the association as a way of saying, today we're going to play the rules that were written down by that association, not the ones that were written down by those people over at rugby school. And if the practice is to take the beginning of one word and add to it, well, that would be asser. Discretion being the better part of valor and all, they went more with association, soaker, right? They took that middle-ish back bit and used that instead. Missed opportunity, lads. Missed opportunity. So soaker becomes more soccer, and now you've differentiated between rugger and soccer, rugby and soccer. That's where it came from. In the UK and throughout much of the rest of the world, it's not that difficult to refer to football because there's no real friction with any of the other games. The closest other football is rugby. It's got its own name, so we can call this one football, that one rugby. That's easy. In Australia, they do call it soccer because they've got a competing they've got a competing football, which is Australian rules football. We also have the competing gridiron football, and therefore there's kind of a friction and a need to differentiate. Obviously, there's a reason for using the British invented term in all of these places to differentiate from other games, obviously. So, why do British people care so much about it? First, I'm not convinced that all of them do. And secondly, we're engaging here in a process called the narcissism of small differences. So, if you want to differentiate yourself from another group, you highlight the differences between you and them as a way of kind of splitting in two. You are you and we are we. It's in group out group bias. We are an us, and we call it football. You are a them, and you call it soccer. And then also, if you can engage in a practice of diminishing the out group, then that's a way of solidifying the in group. The narcissism of small differences is really about highlighting usually pretty inconsequential differences rather than focusing on our vast shared common ground. We love the same game. We cry the same tears. I do pretty often call it football because I'm not terribly interested in gridiron. I don't watch it. But my conformity is not your victory. Our hyperfixation on division is our shared defeat. Part of what I love so much about this game is the sharedness it brings with damn near everyone on the planet. I mean, do we ever all do one thing at one time across the entire globe? Very, very rarely. But more than a majority of us will watch the World Cup final all at the same time. And God, I love that togetherness. I often feel a great antipathy toward those that try to sow division in this beautiful game. So I see only one solution for us all to select together the one true term for the greatest sport ever invented. Asser.